Okay, let me refresh this. Right. So next one I want to copy is this for the inputs. That's form control. So that's the Bootstrap class that handles your input styles. So added the form control here. Let's see. Let's refresh this. As you can see, the style inputs the focus of all the styling is coming from that form control stuff. So all these classes I've added, I didn't do the same for. Okay, for the button, it's just to add our Bootstrap normal class button. Button. I'll come here and say class ETL. To mute, please. I'm hearing background noise from someone's mic. Please mute. Okay, so this is the input. This is the vertical form. Vertical form. As you can see, they also added a kind of the input. They added border radius. Kind of is no longer sharp. It's kind of bent. So these are the things that comes with this form control class. Now, if you want horizontal, this is a typical example. What you see there, the demo. Okay. So next one is this, creating a horizontal form layout.
Sir, yes. Before we go to the next one, sir, it spans 100% to the end of it. Can we reduce it now to at least maybe 30 width or 40 width? Let's see how it's going to be before we move to the next one, sir.
It's something you can do now. Have I not said it before? You can just add your own class name and go and change whatever it is you want to change. These are things you can practice on your own. I can come here and add another class, input field to me. Let me come here and add another one, me. Let me target it. Me. Let me say width. Let's say 30%. Course, and if it doesn't take effect, what do? I will inspect and use this is it. So moving over to the next one, horizontal form layout. Now this one, they are using rows and columns and the rest of them. So I will know what to do. Let me just copy this same one that I used there. This same form. Horizontal form. Let me remove this class I added there. Okay. So what they did was they have to create a row because this is now in horizontal form. So they want to put this and this together. Both the label and the input, they have to be in the same row. So what they did was put them in a row. The first input, and then the next one is coming with a column of small 10. This is what happened. So this div class, I'll just simply change this to row. And then we have our MB3 as usual. Then the input, of course, the input. Remember when we say we have whenever we have a row, we have columns. So for this first row, which is the role of the email, we have two columns. First column is for the label, while the second column is for the input. And as you can see, this one, the label column is small, while the input field column is larger. Now look at this class here that is added to the label. Column SM2, small column 2, and this one, small column 10. If you add two of them together, what do you have? 12. When we talked about grid, we said in a row, it must sum up to 12. It cannot be more than 12. You can decide to have smaller, but in the end, it should sum up to 12. If you want to make use of that complete row, it should sum up to 12. So the only thing they did here was this. I will change the input field class to this. Let's say here, instead of class form label, I'll add this class, this one, for column 2, column SM2. Why are we using column here? Because we have row, it's inside the row. Wherever you are seeing column, there must be row. I've said this before. So for the input field, of course, what they do, just created a div class and then put the input field inside. Form control is always important. Form control is what handles the inputs on its own. So we can't just come and change this form control, this class of form control. No. So what happened is this: just come here and create a div, and then copy this input field and paste inside there. Now, what I have to do is to add the class for this, which is that column class, which is this. Checking out. So what is left to do is just to duplicate. So I'll just come here, add the row class. Goodness. And add my column class here. And this is my password. And then create my div. Cut out this. And paste inside here. And then, of course, the class. Column small 10. Okay, let me write it out. Class, column small 10. That's one. Now, what about the button? If you create anything, of course, the button as well. We have to align properly. So they created a row, different row for the button, created a class. We'll also comment this offset small too, so that you see what effect this has. So let me just quickly copy this to save time. Not much time. Good. Let's refresh. Let's see what we have. Okay, here is our horizontal form, where this and this are on the same line. First column, second column, first column, second column. Now, okay, let's actually do something. Let's put this thing inside a container. We have talked about container, but we have not been using it. Let's actually put this inside the container so it will be beautiful. It will fine pass as it be like this. Okay, div class. Let me fold this out. How can we learn container? We have not been using it. So let me copy this out and paste inside this. So let's use container, normal container. Remember what I said about the container classes? They have container SM, container LG, container MD. They have container fluid. But I want to use this normal container, the one that will give kind of margin left and right, so that our form will be more center. Good. See, there is no space here, there is no space here, it's not centered. Okay. So let's quickly remove this offset on the button. So you see what this one was. Let's actually see if there's anything. Good. So offset 2. See what it's doing? This is div class column SM small. Remember, I've created a row and this is a column. Now, since we have this column of 10, and the row should take up to, 12. And since we are not adding any other thing to it, we just want to, and this button now appeared here on this first row, because a column will always begin from the first side. So in order to add it up, we just added that offset to remove 2. So it will first of all, So it will first of all remove this 2, column of 2, and then start from the 10 itself, which is here. It will remove this first 2 column, which means I don't want you to stay here, remove it, and then start from the next possible section, which is the next, this place. Let me save this and refresh. And mind you, if you're using offset, look at this. Don't say that offset, to use offset, it must be SM. No, this SM is as a result of the column that is associated with it. This SM. Had it been this is MD, then this offset should be MD. See what will happen now. So I've changed that to MD. Let's see what happens. Okay, still working, but once we start minimizing, remember, you're adding this SM and MD because of the responsiveness of what you're trying to create. Okay. Yeah. So it's always good to add these offsets. This offset should be in rhyme, in reading with whatever column you are associating with it. If the column you are using MD, use MD. If it's LG, use LG. So it's not like it must be SM. No, it's SM because that's what is being used here for a smaller screen, the behavior on a smaller screen. So FM is used to chop off some columns if you want a column to start from some certain place, and chop it off and align it. So this is the horizontal form. Of course, these are form field. Here as well, you can as well resize this if you want. Maybe if I add this class here, if I add back this ME class here now and refresh it to no longer be 100%, to chop off to 30% because I styled it. So you see, you can as well reduce the size if you want, or change the behavior if you want. Now, if I can equally change look at the border radius, I can even increase it or even decrease it. Since I've added that class, that's me. Let's do it here so you can see. It does not stop you from customizing. Oh, sorry, not this border radius. Let's increase it more. Let's say 15 pixels. Let's see how it's going to look like. See, small round now. more round than this one. I can equally remove it if I don't want it to be border radius. I can just set it to 0. Let's refresh. It's gone. As you can see here, it's gone even here because they're sharing the same class. That's my custom class I added. So using Bootstrap classes does not prevent you from changing or tweaking any behavior you want to tweak. All right, creating inline. Okay, so let me still use the field I've been using to create, to do that. Let me copy this with the container. Okay. This is inline form. Inline form. All right. First row, align item center G3. Okay, let's see. We're using grid 3. Okay, this way. Let me remove everything inside here and use the one they provided. Div class row. Let's create a div. Since everything in your form, we want them to be in one row. That is inline. Create a div. Let's add our Bootstrap class. The class is row, and then another class is align item center. G3. Once we can start removing those items one after the other to actually know what each stands for. But before that, let's actually do this. Okay. Let's refresh and check what we have. This thing is blocking. Okay. This is the first one. Div class. Let me put this now. Okay. So after the row, the first column. Now we are not using whether column SM, column margin, column large, or column medium. They are using auto. What does auto mean? Just make sure anything we are entering here, they are aligning. They are using the automatic width. The automatic width of what we want to use. Now look at this class. You can ask, what of the label? Because if I refresh this, you are not seeing any label. Remember, what do I mean by label? Like these ones. The label that is telling you what the field is for, not the placeholder now, the label itself. Look at this class called visually hidden. This is what is making that label to disappear. If I should remove it and refresh, see what will happen. You see the label. See, the label is actually there, but just that class is actually making it hidden. So let me put it back. It's hidden, visually hidden. This is the class responsible for this. So let me add the other fields. So this can actually start making sense. Let's add the password field. Okay. Same thing. So let's refresh and see. Okay. Here and here, 2 fields. Let's add the third one. The check me, remember me box. And also the button. Let me just copy the two. And paste. Let's refresh, or let me save first. Okay, yeah, it is. Now, let me remove this remember me button. I've not been using it. Let me just remove it. It's not part of good. Okay. So this is the inline field. Now, the only difference from other ones is this. When we created it, when we created our form field, we didn't just start creating, we created a row and then started putting them inside. Since we want them to be in the same row, remember, this is inline, okay? And then each of them, we put them in a div, a column. And then this column, we are giving it a class of column auto. But we don't want to give it a certain size, whether medium or SM, small. Because once you say medium, now you also have to give it the column size you want. Do you want 4? Do you want 3? Do you want 2? Do you want 10? Do you want 8? Okay, but now we are giving auto, which means we can actually add as many as, okay, let's add more of this password field. Let's see what happens. Let me duplicate this, duplicate this, duplicate this, duplicate this. Raise this up. Okay, so now, as you can see, as I keep adding and adding and adding, we just be automatically, but let's refresh, minimize this and see the behavior on a medium screen. See the behavior on a medium screen. Now, what is happening is this. Remember that I put everything inside a container. So that container already has a margin, some space on the right-hand side and some space on the left-hand side. Now we are creating a form inside this row. Inside that row, this auto means just take up as much space, the space that is required for this particular field. So once the space for this particular field is exhausted, if you add another one, it will just go under. It will go under. It will go under. That's what this auto means. That's why we are not giving it, whether we don't want it to, whether you want to give it a column small of 4 or 3 or 6 or 12 as you have. Just automatically it behaves in a way. Automatically identifies, okay, can this space contain the next field that is coming? If it cannot, then go to the next row, enter the next row. That's what this auto is all about, automatic. And then I'll suspend this visually hidden before. It just hides this input field in a way that you're no longer seeing it. What you're just seeing is just the input field, but the label is still there. That is hidden doesn't mean that it's not there. It's still there. Now, okay, said I was going to comment some of these things out, so we'll see the behavior. Let's remove that G3. Okay. Grid 3. So the grid you are using is grid 3. Let me update that to let me see G6. Let's actually see the behavior of this. Since there's no, okay, there's no G6. Let's use G2. Let's refresh. Okay. It has given space. Let's use G1. See if this place still closes the grid space. of course, the grid space that's elapsed. So I think the maximum is, let's actually use G4, the grid space of 4. Let's see amount of padding it will give for space. Okay, it has G4. Let's check G5. And I give a padding of 5 or margin of 5. Of course, let's use G6, margin of 6. Okay, we cannot, so no much space again, can only pick up this. So that G5 is what is giving margin between these two, between the grids. This is the first grid, the first column, this is the second column. What is giving space between them? Between them. That's what this G5 is. Now, align item center. What this one does is the items. What are the items? The items are these columns. They are the items. Let's refresh. Okay. Okay, column automatic handles that, but still the items, which means you can actually remove it. But let's see. Where is that? Let's remove the G5 as well. Row, column, automatic. Okay, not much difference. So I think this item was added, this class, align items center, was added when there are multiple items in such a way that this is no longer maintaining one horizontal axis. The next item that is coming up that cannot enter the same row aligns properly with the rest of them. But by default, column auto already handles that. By default, this column auto has already styled items that makes it in such a way that it knows when to put things to the next row. And when it puts things to the next row, it aligns them properly. It aligns them properly. So probably this align item center comes in handy, maybe when you're not using column auto, if you want to use a different behavior for these inline forms. So is there any other class here that's not talked about? No, of course, you know what role is. We've talked about container, we've talked about text center. So what next? Custom forms. Yes, let me check. Form check. Okay. This one is, we've counted something like this before when we're talking about, where was it? That was list the typography. We talked about check boxes. Yes, it was in list group, check boxes. So this class, this one is basically for check boxes, whether it's a type of radio or a type of checkbox. It has its own class, Bootstrap classes. So this one you can practice on your own and just copy it and paste it, comment it out and check how it appears on whether how to display it inline and the rest. Oh my God.
We can't hear anything, sir. The sound is off.
Oh. Sorry. I didn't know this thing muted when I was moving this up and down. This input group, custom forms, buttons, and button groups are all associated with forms. There are different classes that are associated with forms. Different things, different classes that are associated with that input group now, different classes are associated with the input type. If you look at what we have been doing so far, we have the form control for the input. So they have other classes that you can associate with an input. So I'm saying that this will be part of your homework for you to go and practice these input groups. Buttons and button groups are all about different styles you can apply on buttons. Of course, I've shown you buttons before. There's nothing there if not the class. BTM, primary, secondary, coloring, and maybe the outline. This one is now outline. Maybe if you don't want to, the background color, you just want it to be the outline, like the border and the text, not the entire button to be colored this way. But this, use BTN outline, whatever, then the color. So these things are just what you can practice since I've talked about buttons lightly. Buttons, input group, custom forms, and button groups. Just these four. This will be your homework. Custom forms, input groups, buttons, and button groups. Practice them and study them. If you have a question, you jot it down for the next class. Since our time is almost up, I'll leave it open now to entertain questions. So any questions? Let me quickly copy this and paste in the group chat. Any questions before this thing goes, before our call ends?
Yes, sir. My question is on each, let's assume we want to create a grid with a write-up, maybe a particular news on this program, and we also want to create on a
The line is breaking. I'm not hearing.
News too. Then, are we going to create a separate pages for it, or it can still be in one page?
I didn't hear what
and linked together.
I didn't get your question. Your line is breaking. Come again.
I said, sir, assume we want a page of a news blog on one particular news, let's say on this web development, and we're using front. I said, let's assume we want to create a page on front-end development, and also create another page on
Hello, Mr. Francis, come again. My network went off, so you are on mute. Unmute and continue with your question, please.
Okay. Okay, sir. My question is this, sir. If as we are doing this program now, we want to create a page for it, that is for front-end development, and we also want to have a back-end development. Can those two news or write-ups be in one page? Or you must space it to have a separate page with different link?
I really don't understand the scenario we are coming from. Make me understand.
What I'm saying, sir, is this. Let's assume we are writing on how to use front-end applications to develop a web page and how we can gather data on using the back end on the different write-up too. Can those two write-up be put in one page and link in the same place, or it will be put in separate pages?
How do you mean link to where?
This network.
Like if I understand you correctly, you are saying you have let's say you have two articles.
Yes, sir.
And once you click on that article, you want to go to where the article is and read it, to the page where the article is.
Yes,
and read
sir.
It. And
yes, sir.
Those two articles, you're asking if the two of them can be, maybe if you click on their links, if they're going to take you to the same place to go and read it. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, sir.
If
yes, sir, that is what I'm asking.
If you do not implement any backend to read the data from the database, it means that you have to hard code those write-up. And if you hard code those write-up, they have to have their different pages. So if the first link is an article about front end, there should be a front end.html file where you hard code the write-up. And then the second link is a backend write-up. Then the link should take you to something like backend.html where you can read about backend stuff. But if the data was saved in the database, the link will only have an ID. So that when you click on that ID, you make a query to the database, your query will go to